So the Sixers prevail over the Knicks, and in doing so, Tom Thibodeau, the one-time assistant to Doc Rivers, will shake the coach's hand as Rivers now is 10th all-time in NBA history in coaching victories, his 945th, passing the Hall of Famer.
It was a long time in the making, but certainly a noteworthy milestone for Doc Rivers last night. The 76ers defeating the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden by 20 points. And Doc, in his second game as head coach of the 76ers in the regular season, moving into 10th place on the all-time regular season NBA coaching wins list, past Bill Fitch. A great moment, Lauren Rosen, to cap off that game at the Garden last night. Now the 76ers in game number 3 of the season, looking to stay perfect this evening at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. It's no longer the Q, but they're in Cleveland.
They are indeed looking for a perfect back-to-back to kick off the first road trip of the season. Let's start the season 3-0. The good vibes are still rolling among the group, so they'll hope for their second win in as many days tonight. And like you said, not at the Q anymore, but still in Cleveland, still against some familiar foes in the East.
We know, certainly by following the team last season, and if anyone followed the Sixers last season as well, they know that the road was not a place that the team frequently found success, especially down the stretch of last season. Sixers just didn't get a win last night. They ended up running away with it. I thought that was such an encouraging thing to see, Lauren, that even though the Knicks were hanging around a little bit, the squad came out with a very focused and sharp mindset in the third quarter. They ratcheted up defense in that period in particular, and they ended up, in the end, having a pretty simple time. In the closing minutes, there wasn't any doubt about which team was going to win this game.
Well, and Doc Rivers said after the opener that he hoped the group was going to be able to put the game away in the second quarter, in the third quarter. And in the opener, it came down to the last few minutes, not last night. The group got out ahead. They stayed ahead. Even when it felt like the Knicks were mounting mini comebacks, the Sixers were able to quell those, whether it was with the first or second unit. And that's something that I know Doc Rivers was happy to see. And it seemed like the players postgame were also happy to be able to put away a decisive road win.
And listen, I think at the outset of that game, if anyone watched it or listened to it, followed along, you could tell the Knicks, despite being less experienced, and quite frankly, this is going to sound harsh, but I think it's true, less in terms of talent than the 76ers, at least in terms of mature and growing talent, in terms of players that have been in the league for a while. Knicks, I thought, put up a good fight. They defended the Sixers well. They didn't make it easy for Joel Embiid. He had to battle. At first, he was being face guarded a lot and couldn't find many opportunities on the inside. So it took, I think, a methodical approach by the Sixers. They were patient. They were able to generate some good open looks. And then as the game went on, they were finally able to wear New York down. And I thought that was a really good sign and a nice thing to take away from that win.
Absolutely. The movement last night, especially when it came to Joel being doubled in the post, finding shooters. The highlights were everywhere today. It felt like we were getting a lot of positive press when it came to the Sixers ball movement. Ben Simmons last night said they were passing so much that they felt like the Harlem Globetrotters, which I loved personally. Any opportunity to get a little joke out of Ben Simmons is lovely. But yeah, they felt like they were moving the ball well, and it worked out in the score sheet.
As we take a look at some of the highlights, Joel Embiid draining a three-pointer right there that gave the Sixers their first lead of the game. The conversation has to start, Lauren, with Joe. He has been so good. Another 20-10 double-double last night, 27 points, 10 boards, 2 for 4 from outside the arc. And when he wasn't doing scoring directly, he was helping facilitate the offense for the 76ers with things going through him. He had a really, really strong performance.
He sure did. And something that I liked most was the way that he took care of the basketball. That's something that he said last season he wanted to get better about, and said that he spent a lot of his off-season sharpening, was taking care of the basketball, not turning it over. He only had one turnover last night, and it was in his final seconds out there on the court. Afterwards, he said that he was bummed that he couldn't just keep that one in his hands. But to see him take care of the ball the way he did, despite the double teams, I think is a really promising sign for what's ahead for Joel.
No question about it. And as we take a look at some more of the footage from the game against the Knicks last night, as the Sixers get ready for the Cleveland Cavaliers this evening, I think something else you can tell that when you have a player as elite as Joel Embiid on both ends of the court, the rising tide lifts all ships adage. And that happens. Seth Curry, a really strong game with 17 points last night. Tobias Harris with 17. Ben Simmons with 15, 9, 6, and 2 blocks. Just an all-around great effort by the Sixers. And Lauren, I mean, the numbers for Joe through 2 games, 56 points, 24 rebounds, shooting 54% from the field. That is so well above the general average that he shot at through the first 4 seasons of his career. And he's 3 for 5 from outside the arc.
He said he wants to dominate this year, and so far he has done exactly that, once at home, once on the road. We'll look to see if he can do it for the 3rd time tonight. And then, of course, Tuesday, we have 3 games in 4 days right now. So what better way for the group to get up to speed together than all these games in such close proximity together?
The big man has been a big dominating force for the 76ers so far. Let us roll the tape and see what Joel Embiid had to say about his increasing level of comfort with the Sixers this year with shooters around him.
We added Danny too, and then you got guys coming off the bench, and Shake and Furt. They've been doing a great job, and I'm definitely more comfortable, even when it comes to, passing out a double team and making sure. One thing I'm trying to improve this year is, not turning the ball over. I had, I think, 1 today, and it was at the end. But before I got out, I was very disappointed. It's definitely making me comfortable, and it's also helping my game. Because now, if you want a double, I dare you, because we're going to knock down those shots. And if you let me play one-on-one, it's either a bucket or foul.
Lauren, I think that we are 2 games in, and we are 2 for 2 with awesome sound bites from Joel Embiid. He said after the opener on Wednesday against the Wizards, something about he feels like he's the best player out there. He's going to dominate. And this one was, if you're going to double, I dare you. I love it.
The confidence is oozing out of Joel Embiid right now, and that's exactly what you want from someone like Joel, who does feed off of confidence and energy. And tonight he has one of his favorite opponents, Andre Drummond. We'll see how that matchup goes down low. And Celts, I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to seeing how Dwight Howard sort of backs up Joel tonight against his former teammate, JaVale McGee. JaVale and Andre Drummond both had great games last night. The Cavs went to double overtime. We'll talk about that later. But I'm excited to see how those big-on-big battles go tonight.
Yeah, Dwight has been fantastic. In pretty short run as well, he has been so efficient with the minutes he's played. Another guy who's been fantastic in a lot of respects, got to give Ben some. Oh, I should say this. I'm sure people out there are wondering, what is Joel Embiid's status for tonight? It's the 2nd game of back-to-back. We don't know. Doc Rivers spoke about 15 minutes ago, and he was asked that question, and he said, well, you're just going to have to wait and see if Joel's out there to start the game. So if we find out anything late in breaking while we're on the stream here, we will certainly keep you updated. But yes, Ben Simmons, Lauren, he has just been I wouldn't say the two performances for him so far have been of the takeover variety. They haven't needed to be, but he's just affected the game in so many ways.
And he's been really good down the stretch, especially in that opener, a flawless 3 for 3 in those last 6 minutes, which was really impressive from Ben. You like to see him playing with confidence late in the game. And last night, obviously, on the defensive end, he put together such a holistic game. And to hear Doc Rivers say that Ben Simmons is even better than he thought he was, especially when it comes to his instincts on the defensive end. I mean, Doc Rivers knew that Ben Simmons was excellent. And the fact that he's exceeding expectations is a really good sign from Ben.
Well, I think it just sounds like a great love fest so far between Ben and Doc. And for further evidence of that, let us hear what Ben Simmons had to say at the Garden last night after the 76ers 20-point dub.
We got the lead, lost the lead a little bit, but I think it was just our mentality going in there, knowing, we had to step up. We have to hold each other accountable defensively and offensively. And getting into our stuff. And, we got to play at a high level every night. We can't take breaks with anybody, especially with teams that we should beat.
And something that Ben Lauren has been talking about so far openly is that he and Doc Rivers are having candid conversations, that Doc's been really in Ben's ear, trying to point out where Ben needs to be on the court. And Ben has seemingly appreciated that Doc is trying to bring a different set of eyes, fresh mind to how Simmons could best be utilized on either side of the floor.
Well, Doc says Ben has so many skills and he wants to bring out all of them. And all of Ben Simmons' skills, that is a hefty tool chest for sure. We know he's been working closely with Sam Cassell as well. So it's good to see Ben developing this chemistry with his coaching staff, because despite the great play on the court, we somehow forget that this is a group that hasn't been together for a long time. Obviously, Ben and Joel have played their whole NBA careers together, but when it comes to the rest of the starting unit and the entire coaching staff, this is a new group who seems to be clicking really well, really early.
As we talked about a few minutes ago, the theory and notion of a rising tide lifting all ships, Doc Rivers seemed to be zeroing in on that point himself and talking about the effect of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons on the rest of the 76ers roster.
If we rely on one guy or two guys, we're not going to win. But when you can get everybody involved, your main two guys are still going to get all their numbers. But what they're doing, and what I love so far, Joel and Ben are making Seth, Tobias, and everyone else around them better players. And that's exactly what we want them to do.
Of course, you love it. Yes, they're the two all-stars, and everyone else around them benefits. We're benefiting from seeing the chat. If you're watching our stream on YouTube, starting to come alive a little bit. If you have any questions, feel free to drop some stuff in the chat. See some, certainly someone wants to know about Joel Embiid playing, yes or no. We don't have definitive word on that at this point in time. Got any questions about the Cavaliers? We'll touch upon them in a little bit. But there's a guy, Lauren, who knows everything there is to know about the Sixers, and that's Tom McGinnis.
I had a chance to speak with him just moments ago, so go ahead and check it out. A pleasure, as always, to be joined by the one and only Tom McGinnis. And Tom, I want to start with Joel Embiid, who looked really comfortable last night and afterwards says he's feeling better about playing with these teammates. He took great care of the ball. He feels good passing out of double teams. So I'm curious what you saw from Joel last night that impressed you the most.
Well, Embiid's really played well in these first two games, to be sure. Night like tonight, and even last night, this is why you put in the work. This is why you get your body in prime physical condition, because, again, it's the NBA. You got to come back and do it again. So last night, I thought he was active, and he's so big and agile around that basket. Sometimes he's just working and getting position and laying them in, and they're almost like easy points. But to me, I know he's really good on the block, but that face-up, like 18-footer on the wing, Lauren, when the guy kind of has to give him a little space because he can put it on the deck and get to the rack too. And he just, he might up fake. I like it when he doesn't even dribble. And he's just, they're giving him a lot of opportunities in space. They're kind of like ISOs. They're throwing it to him. And he just makes a wing jump shot. And everything kind of builds off there. Now, the doubles, they're going to come, and he's done better at it. But to me, that's still a work in progress, because, and this is a team that can do this swing corner three if he handles that the right way. But he has been absolutely terrific, no doubt about it. And you want that. You want your best player to be somebody you can count on every single night. But again, defensively as well, he was really a force in there. Now tonight, he has really played well against Andre Drummond. But Drummond had an unbelievable game last night. He goes back to his old haunt there in Detroit, racks up numbers that only LeBron in the history of the Cavs had ever done, 20-plus points, 16 rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. So I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. Will Embiid continue to dominate, Andre Drummond? And this is like a sneaky matchup a little bit. Their guards are really good right now. And, they're playing with confidence, double overtime win on the road. Coach that they're playing for is, Bickerstaff said multiple times they could have quit, speaking of the Cavaliers. So I think this is going to be a big test for the Sixers. Can they win 2 games in a row on the road? Can, take care of a team that traditionally has been under 500 of late, that they've fared well against, winning 3 of 4 last night. But Embiid has been great. Big test for the team again tonight.
And let's look at the other end, the defensive end, somewhere where Joel Embiid has been strong and Ben Simmons was borderline electric last night. What are you liking on the defensive end from this team so far?
Well, again, it all builds out from Embiid around the basket, and it's not just blocking shots. It's guys that are taking drives but are conscious of Embiid leaving their, his man to come over and clog up the middle or block. And that really gives guys that are guarding drivers a lot of confidence that they have somebody back there protecting them. And then you have Ben Simmons, who the job he did on RJ Barrett, he's blocking those shots, tipping them like Barrett. That offer that he had going there for a long time in that Knick game last night was in large part because of Simmons. And then, oh, by the way, he throw a guy off his game. So you have 2 guys that are going to be, I think, at some point, all league defensive team members. And I know Embiid has already been in that category. But again, I looked at tonight because you got Tobias Harris playing a 4. Now, Love is questionable with a calf. Yeti Osman will bring you out on the perimeter. And then the guards, in terms of Garland and Sexton, Ben can guard one of them, but Darius Garland has arrived. Is that, if Curry plays, is that going to be Curry? Or, is Danny Green, who's been really good on defense? I would think, because I know the Sixers have length, but they're really kind of starting 3 guards when you consider Green, Curry, and Simmons. So there are nights, I would think, that there are going to be some matchups when guys have true forwards, like a 3 and a 4. So, but the defense has been terrific. I mean, you look at the scoring, it's 111 points per game. You've won 2 games. By way of example, Cleveland's averaging 124 points per game. Now, granted, one of their games went 10 minutes longer, but that's what it's got to be. Again, Lauren, you got 17 games in January, 15 in February. There's going to be nights where guys don't have their legs, where they're just knocking down jumpers, and your offense is going to stagnate and struggle a little bit. So you need your defense to be able to keep you in games, keep that scoring down. And that, I think, is what Doc Rivers has talked about since he arrived here in Philadelphia.
A pleasure to hear your insights as always, Tom. Thank you so much.
You got it, Lauren.
And you can hear Tom McGinnis, of course, on 97.5 The Fanatic if you're in the Philadelphia listening area or anywhere else on the Sixers radio network tonight. And as we segue, Lauren, here on 7-6 Live Countdown presented by Tissot to talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, I think you and Tom brought up some really good points. Hey, the Cavs are 2-0. The upstart young Cleveland Cavaliers are 2-0. And I think that you could make a case, maybe they're a little bit too young, but I think that they could be in the hunt for that play-in spot, maybe in the Eastern Conference, if some of what they've shown already is able to hold up. They've got some really good young guards in Sexton and Garland and some veterans sprinkled in there as well.
Absolutely, Seltz. The play-in component of this season and, of course, of the bubble as well made things really exciting. And you have to think that a team like the Cavaliers has an outside shot at getting into one of those play-in games. Like you said, Sexton, Garland, and then their veterans, Andre Drummond, Kevin Love, who is questionable tonight, but always a force down low and sometimes from the perimeter too. This could be a good team that finds its way into one of those play-in tournaments. And like you said, a start that was really strong, 2-0, just like the Sixers. So we'll see how those young guys show up tonight. Keep in mind the Cavs also on the second end of a back-to-back, and they played double overtime last night. So we'll see. Maybe the Sixers starters might have their legs a little bit more because they got to rest a little bit in that second half. while the Cavs were going to town in bonus minutes. So we'll have to see if that has any sort of effect or if they're all still running on fumes from the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and I'm going to be real curious to see how the Sixers defense holds up against a backcourt like this where you have Sexton and Garland, not the biggest guys, but kind of bouncy, pogo stick. They can shoot. At least they've shot the ball well through 2 games. Listen, Sexton is a former number 8 pick. He scored 59 points in 2 games, shooting 5 for 7 outside the arc. Garland was the number 5 pick last year, 43 total points. So I'm not really good at math, but that's over 100 points between the two of them through their first 2 games of the season. So I think that's going to be a great test for the likes of Curry, Simmons, Danny Green, however Doc Rivers decides to scheme it up defensively.
We saw the Sixers have a test against some young guys last night, though, and they did a really good job. When you look at the way that Ben Simmons contained RJ Barrett, Matisse Thybulle also had some minutes on Barrett, and they really did a good job of keeping him contained. That is another young stud. When we talk about guys like Sexton and Garland, Barrett has to be in the conversation. So look to the Sixers perimeter defenders again tonight to do a good job containing those two, who we can expect to have plenty of energy. Because if anyone can rally for the second half of a back-to-back, it's the young guys, that's for sure.
All right, is it time for our dramatic, suspenseful keys to the game presented by Tissot countdown clock? I think it is. Lauren, do you want to go first tonight? I went first the first 2 games of the season. Why don't you go first tonight?
Why not? So my key is pretty simple. It's contain Andre Drummond, who had a great game last night, 23 points, 16 rebounds. The man is a walking double-double, and the double-doubles are big with him. They're not just barely there. They're always pushing 20 points, pushing 20 rebounds. He's phenomenal. So Joel Embiid, also phenomenal, will have his hands full down low tonight. Expect Dwight Howard to get some minutes on him as well. I say contain Drummond, let the shooters shoot, and things could be good for the Sixers tonight for the 3rd time in as many games.
What did Joel call himself? I think that was close to 24 seconds, by the way. Very close. Did Joe say that he was the landlord the last time, or one of the last times he went up with Andre Drummond?
I don't want to misquote Joel here, but there's something about real estate in each other's brains. There's a little bit of banter going on. We know Dwight Howard, no stranger to that type of banter. So I don't want to make any predictions in terms of how guys are going to get into each other's heads tonight. It's always something to watch when these ones face off.
No question. So I'm going to say for the Sixers defense, get after those guards. Be on high alert. These are 2 young, spry guards that Cleveland rolls out there. Doc Rivers, before the game, said that he thinks Cleveland's trying to build a Lillard-McCollum type combination in Cleveland with these young up-and-coming guards. So if you can kind of cut off the head of the snake there, I feel like Joe has enough experience against Drummond to hopefully have that be a wash. But yeah, look out for those guards. They've been good the first 2 games. It's crazy. I mean, Cleveland's 2-0 for the first time to start a season since LeBron was in his final season. So the 2 undefeated teams trying to keep this perfect mark on the line.
Someone's got to stay undefeated after tonight, Celts. And I've got the Sixers, that's for sure. But I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out on the court.
Okay, one plug before we wrap up and say see you next on Tuesday. Lauren and I, we're going to be doing a Monday mailbag podcast throughout the season on the 76ers Podcast Network. So find us on Twitter. I'm at Brian Seltzer. Lauren, you can give your handle.
At Lauren M. Rosen. At Lauren Rosen was taken, sadly, but it's okay.
We got to work on that. But anyhow, drop us an @ there if you have any questions, or you can go to one of our podcast sites, anchor.fm/76ers. Leave us a voicemail. And here's the thing. If we read your question or prompt on the pod, you will be put into the old drawing bag for some 76ers swag. I mean, need we say more?
Never a bad thing. Please do submit your questions, whether it's to us directly on Twitter or through the Anchor link. We love engaging with you guys. Thank you to everybody that was in the YouTube comments with us tonight. Thank you to everybody that's watching on Twitter and Facebook. And we're looking forward to seeing you again on Tuesday night.
Yeah, Sam Riddle hit us in the mentions. C-Note 215, see you next on Tuesday. Yes, the 76ers after tonight play next on Tuesday at home against the Toronto Raptors. But if you're new to 7-6 Live Countdown, we come your way somewhere around 90 minutes before every game. And now we're done. I'm hearing the music.
That's it. Enjoy the game.
It's like the Oscars.
Thanks, everybody.
The cane's coming. Oh, yes, look at this. A fine lad, Furkan Korkmaz, face mask and all, in downtown Cleveland. Stone's throw away from Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Great to see the squad.
Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
Everybody looking good. And Celtics, it looks like it might not be as cold in Cleveland as it is in Philadelphia right now. These coats are a little bit on the shorter side, especially Furk looked like maybe he was comfortable out there.
All right. Threw it in reverse. Some walk-ins as we walk out. Thank you to Trevor Gaffney, Ryan Coletti at Mission Controls. Lauren, we'll look for your coverage after the game. Everyone else, enjoy it. See you later.